one item that people are looking for when they're choosing where they're going to spend their recreational time at an aquatics facility. Fees and costs ranked second, fun features and amenities ranked third, classes and programs ranked far less than the top three. As we are going through these types of questions, we allow the general public and the respondents to provide written comment because sometimes survey questions doesn't paint the whole story, so we need to receive some narrative. And one of the things, or several of the things that we're learning are that people are really wanting a safe and clean environment, they want it family friendly, and they want it to be usable, and they want to enjoy their time there and have entertainment at this facility. And so when we think about moving forward, these are lessons learned. These are things that we come back to and reflect on for any decision or any conversation or any element moving forward. So when asked what the overall value of the Hampden Pool is, you can see that the overall value is again ranking high, right? This is good to see. This is painting a picture that your community supports the Hampden Pool. What was interesting is when we asked this question, we had two themes start to arise in that narrative that I told you about. The first one is the Hampden Pool is not competing with other facilities, newer facilities, more updated facilities. We heard this quite a few times. So when we think about decreasing revenue, decreasing attendance, and we're starting to see this theme, they do begin to pair together. The second theme that really came out is that users are looking for options that accommodate both adults and families. Not one or the other, but they need to complement each other. That means flexibility of use and the ability for multiple people to use spaces. From there, what do people want in their facility? How do they want to use it? We ask 3 independent questions to get a gauge on of different types of features, and those are the fun things that people want in their facility. We have small, medium, and large. For the small amenities, the inflatable obstacle course ranked number 1. Toddler features and a rock wall, which you do have right now, ranked number 2. And toddler features include things like zero depth entry, a small slide, maybe shade, little sprays. Those are the types of feature examples for toddlers. And the third ranking was a log roll. Moving on into medium features, these are going to be larger, typically larger in size and quite a bit larger in cost as well. Large slides ranked number 1, followed by a water walk or a lily pad walk, depending on how you know it as. A wet bubble, which is a kind of a blend between a climbing structure and a slide. And then number 4 is a play structure, and this is actually a wet play structure. There's water spraying on this. And the third category, the large amenities, these are going to be spaces, things that you really only get to do once. You can't go back and when we're looking at options, they're a little more challenging. So we break large amenities apart from the other ones, again, because of capital cost and amount of effort to get it done. A lazy river ranked number 1, deep water ranked number 2, a wave pool ranked number 3, and a zero depth ranked number 4. Facilities are more than just those things. There's support amenities as well. Shade ranked number 1, which is no surprise to anybody. It was identified pretty early on that more shade was needed at this facility. Wi-Fi access was ranked number 2. A rentable pavilion or separate party type area ranked number 3. And music options ranked number 4. So additional comments here. Let me flip here real quick. Overall, you have community support for this facility, and that is always the number 1 item that we are looking for in any sort of feasibility study. And so the general community has come out and said, we do support the Hampden Pool. Pool improvements are needed, and that's going to be the next section that we talk about. And monitoring maintenance and the ongoing upkeep of the facility did come up as a high priority. So these are 3 additional themes that we are keeping in mind moving forward. Now what we're going to do is we have a foundation to the story. Now we're going to transition into, from the information that we have gathered, what are some options moving forward? And before we get into the specifics behind that, I want to begin that this is a conversation starter. This is not a recommendation. This is not a decision. This is quite literally the first time we are bringing options to you to begin the conversation about if the facility is going to have some sort of improvement or modification. What kind of options are we looking at? So again, this just starts the conversation. And we have 3 options to bring to you today. Option 1 is going to be kind of a lower tier type option. Lower 2 is going to be a middle of the road option. And option 3 is going to be the largest of the 3. So let's break those down. In option 1, we are really focusing on your existing facility and how to improve it. So from the facility assessment through the feedback that we got, I want to break down what we're looking at right here. Just so the room knows, at the very end, we're going to review a magnitude of cost. They're not narrowed down costs or truly specific construction costs. They are magnitude of costs. And as we go through this, I will show you some photos because bubble diagrams don't always do it. Once we get past the screen, I'll show you some example photos. But in option 1, we're taking your existing facility and improving what needs to be improved. So things that need to be replaced. The baby pool shade structure at the baby pool, it's corroded. We would recommend to be replaced. The baby pool tile and perimeter concrete around that facility, there is some repair work that needs to be done around that body of water. The spray ground features, Jeff mentioned, they are outdated, and potentially some that had some operational challenges this year. And then the water slide as well. With that slide tower already needing work, we would encourage taking a look at maybe replacing something like that in an option. So those are items we are bringing to you for conversation to replace. To add, we'd be looking at shade structures, which again ranked very highly. And something interesting about your deep end right here, it's a fairly large space. We would like to look at reorganizing that to be able to add a second feature in that space. So relocating that rock wall and maybe adding something like an inflatable obstacle course or something like it. We are proposing in this option to remove that dry play structure. And in the bathhouse, there's a little bit of work for the ventilation, as Jeff talked about, and also adding in a family changing room that was coming up through your public engagement as being desired. So here are a few example photos. We'll start here at the top, and I'll work my way clockwise. So here in the splash pad area, this is, and I know for the people in the back of the room, it may be difficult to see, but replacing those features with more modern spray pad or spray ground features. These circles here on any of the options are indicating shade. Relocating that rock wall. This is an example of an inflatable structure that may be able to go as an idea in that deep water area to activate it a little bit more. Replacing the slides and in the baby pool area, that shade structure that I was talking about. So that's option 1. And of note for the room, anything listed in option 1 is going to be included in options 2 and 3. So it is cumulative in that way. Option 2, however, does not pertain to option 3. They are independent. Option 1 is the basis for both. In option 2, we are looking at modifying your existing facility. So we are not expanding it per se, we are reorganizing it. So all the things listed in option number 1 plus some. So let's review the plus sums. So we'll start here in the baby pool area. We are showing a small toddler slide going in that space. We have, I'm going to skip this main body of water just for a moment. Here in the shallow water space that you have right now, we are showing convert that to a zero depth area. So that is as if you're walking into the ocean. It's a beach entry. And kind of repurposing this shallow space that you have right now. One of the major differences here, and I am going to flip forward, is instead of having multiple 50-meter lanes, we're showcasing here actually putting a bulkhead in. That's a permanent piece of the shell, and changing this to a short course that's 25 yards while maintaining 2 lanes at 50 yards, and putting in a current channel. So sometimes this can be challenging to understand. This graphic right here is an example of what we're talking about. So this is a current channel, and we have another photo right there, kind of going into that space where the long course used to be, and putting that bulkhead in to shorten up those lanes. Okay, here's an example of a toddler slide that we're looking at for that baby pool, and an example of a zero depth entry that we're referencing. Okay, in this option we show a play structure, that wet play structure that showed up as of interest in your amenities selection. We do show that as an option if up in that splash pad area instead, or in addition to replacing those features, possibly, or being able to add a play structure in that space as well. Option 3, again, this is the highest of the options. This would basically be an aquatic complex additions. So it is maintaining the facility that you have and adding to it. So items in this option that were not in the previous options. Number 1, maintaining the long course lap lanes. Up in this shallow water area right here, maintaining that space, but adding in something like a family slide, which I'll show you in just a minute. Adding shallow space because of how populated your shallow water space is getting and is. We are showing a zero depth entry right here with additional water space. Adding in a lazy river and relocating large slides to be a part of that lazy river complex, and also a pavilion. So here are some examples. Again, I'm gonna start over here with the lazy river as an example. So this is a photo out of Chillicothe, Missouri. This is a lazy river with a slide column or slide structure with a run out kind of attached to that lazy river. So that was an idea that we were throwing out. Zero depth here with water features, possibly in water shade. I'm moving over to the left. Example of a pavilion or a rentable structure kind of by your concession stand. Here's a family slide, and you've seen these other slides here, or photos. One thing that is of interest and a part of the conversation, again, this is the first time we're bringing you these options, and reviewing this with staff on a very preliminary level and just in back and forth conversation. Another idea that was thrown out is taking a look at the concession stand, and are there improvements over in that area as well. So it's an example of the open dialogue at this point, and the level of option creation idea creation that we have right now. So we present a magnitude of cost for each of those options. As I said, these are not drilled down very specific costs. We present a range to you to accommodate the unknown, to accommodate prevailing wage. Part of these costs, majority of these costs are coming from past projects, some of which are operating off of prevailing wage. We need to do a little bit more digging into your specific prevailing wage, but this range is presented to you to accommodate for discussions like that. So for the basic improvements, we did break that down into 2 different cost options, and it has to do with slides, those larger slides. So $400,000, again, rough magnitude of cost, assuming that the slides are going to be repaired, so you would maintain what you have. And then the cost range of $550,000 to $750,000 for option 1, assuming those slides would be brand new. For option number 2, that's modifying your existing pool. Again, as a reminder, that would be taking, the main change is taking your main body of water from completely long course, putting that bulkhead in, offering short course lanes, putting the current channel in, with a magnitude range of 2 to 3 million, and with the aquatic complex additions between 3 and 4 million. Anything else to add? Okay. Well, at this time, that is a project update for you as far as where we're at in the study. Again, this is an active study. This is ongoing. We are working with township staff every week on this. It is a living process. So at this time, we open this up for dialogue with the board and community members if there are questions and topics for discussion.
Are there any questions from the board at this point?
Yeah, in terms of, I've always, thought, something like the lazy river would be, a really neat thing to be able to add to our pool. In terms of the seasons in Pennsylvania, is that something that's truly sustainable here? You said Missouri is the one that you cited, but in terms of Pennsylvania, the season and how long our pool will be out in the open for, is that truly something that's sustainable?
Yeah, so your facility would operate as you understand it today. We've not had discussions quite yet about if you were to go through an addition or a large scale project like that, what kind of season would you be looking at? We have not gotten that far quite yet. As far as being able to offer a lazy river, it would be just like any of your other pool features, just like your main pool basin. You would be able to operate it with the existing dates or season that you know it today. Is that what you're asking? Did I understand that properly?
Cool, that's fine.
Yeah, following up with Commissioner Silcox's question, on a thing like a lazy river, what do you do in the northern part of the country in wintertime with that part of the structure?
So you would treat a lazy river just like you would treat your main pool. So you would winterize that. It would not require, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it would not require additional work. Now, if there were some elements, let's say wave generation, that were to go into something like a lazy river, there may be alternate considerations. What we're talking about at this level, we are not proposing that level of detail right now, but if you went with a typical lazy river, it should not require any more or additional labor or work to get you prepared for winter any more than your main basin.
When you have something like a lazy river, do other people include that with the annual cost if they do a membership, or is that initial fee and everything while the lazy river?
From my experience, it is included in the membership. Something I'd like to elaborate if that's okay.
Sure.
There's a feature called a flow rider. And that's a brand name, but it's basically surf simulation, and that's typically a standalone option. It's quite expensive, but something like that, it's great. I can send you a link later if you'd like to see it. But something like that is an example of something that you would charge an additional fee or have an additional membership to utilize. Typically, a lazy river is going to be included in your traditional membership rate.
Questions?
I might add one thing on the lazy river. Something we haven't conveyed is it's been a popular conversation within the committee and within the community itself, because there's a lot of use for your water walking, and there right now there's some conflict over the space between your lap swimmers and your water walkers, and lazy rivers have been a popular amenity in communities to provide programs dedicated for water walking within the lazy river. That gives them a home to do the walking that's outside of actual lap lanes.
Nobody runs over them with a boat.
No, hopefully not. And hopefully you'll keep the kids in the tubes out while the water walkers are in there.
Thank you.
Remind me, I know staff has been working with you on this project, so I appreciate their efforts. Will the finished product also have a recommendation from Water's Edge as to what the price point would be for memberships and daily admission if some of these options were pursued? So a baseline of here's what the market analysis shows for the existing pool facility, and here's what you could charge in order to cover debt service if one of these options were selected ultimately.
Yes, that's a great point and an excellent question. We are right in the middle of that market and operational analysis regarding fees in your area. So we will be pairing recommended or options for user fees that would be paired with each of the options, because those fees could potentially, given the enterprise operating model, we will need to account for varying user fees. So yes, we will match that with each of the options, and that will come at the final report.
Thank you. Also, for the benefit of the audience that's interested, I would ask that staff post the draft presentation to the the rec department website as well as the township website so that the public who are unable to attend this evening can review the draft recommendations. And then finally, do you have a timeline in mind that you expect for the final report to be provided?
Yes, we'll have the final report to staff by the end of December. I'd like to correct that in the record.
Yeah.
December of 2019.
That's 2019, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes, and I do imagine that we will be back for a final presentation, likely early 2020, but our due date for that final report to staff is the end of December 19.
Thank you, and I'll just add, I think you did a nice job on the presentation, both of you.
Thank you.
This is where the numbers guy always comes in. So I was the one that asked for the slide on the number of private pools built in the township. So over the same period, there's 300 pools and backyards. Could you tell me what the correlation is between the building of a private pool and the decrease in the membership admission that we've seen over the same period of time?
I have not analyzed each of the years of that particular graph to the overall attendance. We certainly can do that. There may be an impact. We have just not done it yet.
I think there's definitely a trend, and I'm a numbers guy. Another question I have is, could you explain why the West Shore Country Club and Carlisle Country Clubs weren't included as private facilities in this? Because I do think we've got some leakage, because both of those country clubs have focused on young families. They both target families under 42 years of age. And I know there are significant populations in the township that have chosen to stop going to the Hampton Pool and have taken advantage of those very low young family rates.
Okay.
So I think that should be brought into the analysis too, because I think we have significant leakage in those two facilities.
Would you mind repeating? I apologize. We did not
West
include
Shore
this.
Country Club.
West Shore Country Club, what was the
And
second?
Carlisle Country Club.
Okay, very good.
Because as golf has decreased as a popular sport, they focus more on the family amenities and bringing the young families in. So I do think, particularly, West Shore could be a major drain.